Hello, and welcome to this continuation of this podcast, Drugs, Biologics, and Medical Devices. Is this really as simple as so many people think? My name is Dr. Michael Drews. I'd like to further explore the question of what is a medical device with the following example. Is a hospital bed a medical device? Well, believe it or not, hospital beds are regulated as medical devices, and not only that, they are regulated as Class 2 medical devices. In the world of medical devices, we break regulated devices into three classes I like to call layers or strata based on risk. As a general rule, Class 3 devices are the most risky, Class 1 devices are the least risky, and Class 2 are somewhere in the middle. At least that's what theory says, however, there are many exceptions. That's beyond the scope of this particular podcast and is discussed in much more detail in my other podcast series. But back to the question of what is a is a hospital bed a medical device? Not only is a hospital bed regulated as a medical device, it is regulated as a Class 2 device. So let's put this into perspective and consider what I call the medical device slippery slope. If a hospital bed is a medical device, let's take this a step further. And by the way, this is right out of my medical device book. Suppose your company manufactures the wheels of the bed. You sell the same wheels to many different companies who in turn use your wheels in many different types of products and industries. But because one of your customers is attaching your wheels to a hospital bed, which is regulated as a medical device, does that mean you now become a medical device manufacturer? Let's take that a step further. Now suppose you work for a company that makes the rubber that goes into the wheels that attach to the hospital bed. Does your rubber company now become a medical device manufacturer? One step further, suppose you work for a company that makes the solvent in the rubber that goes into the wheels that attach to the hospital bed. Does your solvent company now become a medical device manufacturer? And so on and so on. Some might think that this is a facetious argument. Perhaps so, but remember this example when we discuss the breast implant fiasco and specifically the impact on biomaterial manufacturers, which again is beyond the scope of this particular podcast, but I discuss it in other podcast series. Bottom line, Class 2 medical devices are typically non-invasive and include X-ray machines, picture archiving and communication systems, powered wheelchairs, infusion pumps, surgical drapes, surgical needles, and suture material and acupuncture needles. In fact, 43% of medical devices fall into the category of Class 2. But interestingly enough, pacing leads also are regulated as a Class 2 device. So does it make sense to regulate pacing leads, which are permanent implants going into the patient's heart, and hospital beds in the same classification category? I'll leave that as a rhetorical question for now, but to most normal people that makes absolutely no sense. So let's take an example even further. And by the way, one other thing that I'll add before continuing is that if you have a bed in your bedroom at home, it's not regulated by FDA as a medical device. And yet, as we just saw, if we have a bed in a hospital, it can be regulated as a medical device. In fact, it's a Class 2 device in the same class as a pacing lead. Well, that begs the question, what about a bed in a nursing home or a convalescent facility or an outpatient care clinic, and so on and so on? Once again, there are many examples of the medical device slippery slope. So let's take this even further. Think I'm joking when I say that a hospital bed is regulated as a Class 2. You laugh because you think I'm kidding, but I laugh because I know I'm not. Let's see why. If a hospital bed is a medical device, how about the bed rails on the hospital bed? Are they medical devices? That's an interesting question. Between 2003 and 2012, more than 150 adults died and some 36,000 elderly adults were injured after becoming trapped in bed rails. FDA said the data probably underestimates the problem since bed rails are not always listed as a cause of death by nursing homes, coroners, or emergency room physicians. Experts say that the deaths are avoidable. Of course the deaths are avoidable. In fact, virtually all deaths are avoidable, but the question is, how much effort do we make to avoid them? So many deaths, in fact, are avoidable. Taking this further, FDA as well as the Consumer Product Safety Commission had known about the deaths and injuries for more than a decade, but had done little to crack down on the companies that make them. Why? Well, it comes back to the question, are bed rails medical devices under the FDA or the consumer products regulated by the Consumer Product Safety Commission? There are hundreds of bed rails sold at medical supply stores and discount retailers, which may or may not be considered medical devices, depending on whether the manufacturer makes specific claims. Remember, in regulatory affairs, it's all about the claims. In other words, the device will keep a dementia or Alzheimer's patient from falling out of bed. That is a specific medical claim. Without such claims, it can be viewed as simply a consumer product. As a manufacturer, how would you avoid this problem? Very simple. Do not make any medical claims. Just put the rail on the bed and don't say anything about it. Certainly not a medical claim like the one that just mentioned here. Forcing industry to improve designs and replace older models could cost bed rail manufacturers and healthcare facilities hundreds of millions of dollars. Once again, this is the question of what is safety? How safe is safe? Where do we draw the line? And who decides? Safety is as much of an economic issue, perhaps even more, than anything else. None of the bed rails in use would have passed the suggested design standards proposed back in 1995 if they were mandatory today. So, as I said, what is safety? How safe is safe? Where do we draw the line? Who decides? And in this particular case, at what cost? Let me go just a little bit further with this particular example and ask the question, is a go-kart a medical device? Well, once again, of course, a go-kart is not a medical device, but how about if we tweak the go-kart a little bit and turn it into an ambulance? Now, is it a medical device? That gets very interesting. Okay, how about a wheelchair? Is a wheelchair a medical device? Well, again, that's not a simple question. Let's go even further. How about a wheelchair cushion? Now, most people would say that a wheelchair may or may not be a medical device, but a wheelchair cushion? How could a wheelchair cushion possibly be construed as a medical device? Don't think so? Then how do you explain this? Here's a recent news release. Unapproved wheelchair cushions top multi-use warning letter. A Tennessee maker of wheelchair components received an FDA warning letter after the agency determined some products advertised on the company's website had never been formally approved. The letter cited this particular company with 9 violations, including the company's online promotion of wheelchair cushions described as reducing causes of skin tissue trauma. The product was never cleared via a 510K or approved via a PMA or an investigational device exemption IDE, which is required for wheelchair components carrying specific health claims. So why did this happen? Very simple. Could it have been avoided? Absolutely. How do we avoid it? By not making the claims or by making a very nebulous claim. In other words, do not use a claim like this chair will prevent bed sores or skin ulcers. Instead, make a claim like this cushion will make it easier, make it not so difficult to sit on, or make your butt feel better, or something like that. It's something nebulous. It's what we do with nutraceuticals all the time. Don't make a specific medical claim. Make a very general claim, like it'll make you feel better. That's just another example of the gray area that we face in addressing the question, what is a medical device? My name is Dr. Michael Drews. If you have questions or require more additional information, please feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.